All right, so let's talk a little bit about like the specifics on your test. It is 20 questions. It is multiple choice. It is also obviously on Tuesday. If for some reason you are not here Tuesday, Wednesday morning is your only option for makeup. So I want you to keep that in mind. Wednesday after school is candy and cram, and grades get pulled Thursday. So that's it. You got to make sure that if you're not here Tuesday, that you're prepared to take it Wednesday morning. I made it multiple choice so that I can get those grades back to you as soon as possible, so that we can go over it in class on Wednesday if there's any mistakes, whatever, and then you'll know your exemptions based on that. It's going to cover 210 to 215. Topic-wise, that includes like converting logs to exponential or simplifying logs in exponential, expanding and condensing logs. Like you're not going to hand draw a graph for credit, but you might have to understand what a graph looks like in order to answer a question based on it. So it could be a multiple choice question on what does a graph look like. It could be a multiple choice question on where's the asymptote. It could be a multiple choice question on domain. It could be a multiple choice question on end behavior. So all the characteristics of your graphs you need to understand, including your transformations. So remember on your quiz you did this, like if you took something and you expanded it and then you changed it, what would happen to that graph based on an expansion? So vertical stretches, vertical dilations, horizontal dilations, that kind of stuff. Trying to think what else. And then we got into the exponential stuff. There are 3 formulas you need to know from that section, and that is PERT, the double life, and the half-life equations. So PERT is for something that is being compounded continuously. P is your initial value times e to the RT. R is your rate. T is your time. And then double life and half-life. So if it says something has a double life of blank or a half-life of blank, then those formulas are the initial value. For double, it's initial times 2 raised to the x over t. And for half, it's 1/2 times, or the initial times 1/2 time raised to the x over t. And t is the time it takes to double or half something. So it could give you the setup of that and then ask you, if this is the case, then what would it be after so long? Or what is the rate? That kind of question. Those would be calculator based, obviously. It's half and half, 10 calculator, 10 non-calculator. Stuff like expansion and transformations, and that's non-calculator, if you want to keep it like separate in your head. You will have to be able to run a regression, but it's not an open-ended question like the FRQs are usually built, like part A, build your regression, part B, what happens when this happens, part C, what happens when this happens. Instead of that, it's still like that, but it's multiple choice. So run your regression and then answer a question based on the regression, so your questions could have 2 parts to them. So from the calculator, you need to know how to run the regression, if it was exponential, if it was linear, if it was log, and do what we did on Monday, which was create that chart. So like if I gave you an input, an output, and then a log, you would need to know how to do that. So like if your input is 1, 2, 3, and I don't even know, I'm just gonna make up stuff, but 5, 10, 23. And then I asked you to find the log of your y and find a linear regression. That's what we did on Monday. You need to make sure you know how to do that. I gave you the chart, but the chart's optional. You don't need to fill it in. The multiple choice is going to be where you'll be looking for a linear regression based on x and the log of y. So this is where we did list 1 was our x's, list 2 was our y's, list 3 was the logs of the y, and then we ran the regression with list 1 and list 3. No, it's half and half, 10 and 10. Yep.
All is multiple choice.
It is all multiple choice. Yep. No partial credit. It's the good and the bad. Yeah. And then we finished on Monday with a semi-log plot. So be able to identify what a graph would look like on a semi-log plot. Be able to identify the important thing we talked about with the semi-log plots is if it's an exponential model at the beginning, then it becomes linear, right? When you put it on an exponential, when you put it on a semi-log plot. So if you were given data that was exponential and then it asked you which of the following could show that on a semi-log plot, then you're looking for not only a semi-log plot, but you're looking for a semi-log plot that is linear. Yeah. The bottom can jump as long as it jumps on a consistent basis. Yeah, good question. So the bottom can totally change. The interval can change as long as it's consistent. What's not consistent? Well, it is consistent, but not equally spaced. Would be the vertical axis has to be the 10, 100, 1,000, like that. Any questions on the content? All right. We can go. That's where we're moving next. Okay. God bless you. You want like homeworks or the progress checks? The ones you've done the last couple of days or the homeworks? So which? All right. This is your actual PDF review. So the questions are there and the solutions are there. This is your job for the weekend is to complete this so that on Monday you come in like knowing what you know and don't know. We'll do a little bit of an extra practice. Okay. But in the beginning, these are inverse functions. Then we get to again, you're not going to hand draw, like, yes, I'm having you hand draw this for the test. You won't have to hand draw it for credit, but you would have to be able to identify it from a graph or from the parts of the graph, like the asymptote, the domain, the range, the end behavior, and the graph itself. And then we got into the inequalities. So remember your inequalities. If you're solving for an inequality, you simply can just, like in this case, I would condense and then solve. But anytime you have that inequality, remember that you need to check for a lower bound, which means if I get something like x has to be greater than or equal, or sorry, let's say it said less than 10 from my work, I would also have to go back through here and say that this has to be greater than 0, this has to be greater than 0, and this has to be greater than 0, which in this case means x has to be greater than -3. I don't know if I wrote on an x there. X has to be greater than 4, and then you'd have to restrict it the other way. So I would have to say x has to be greater than 4, but less than 10, for example. So when your inequality statement has a log in it, you have to account for the fact that you cannot find log of a negative number or 0. So you'd have to do the lower bound restriction. So that happens for 7 and for 8. Here's an example in which you could be asked how to do it without a calculator, and then here's an example in which I would give you the calculator, you would find where they cross. So let's talk about I'll give you an example of a log graph, and then we can talk about it. So if it just said like f of x equals negative log base 4 of x minus 1. First of all, what's the initial shape of a log graph? What's a parent function look like? It's like that little R, yeah, right? Like a little arc to the right-hand side. It looks almost like a square root, but it has arrows on both sides, right? So if this was my initial shape, and I don't need you to plot points, the idea is hopefully that you don't have to plot points. Now talk about your transformations here. So what are the transformations on this equation? What's the negative on the front do? Over the x. What's the minus 1 inside the parentheses do? Right, 1. So I basically just took my graph, I shifted it to the right 1. So my vertical asymptote just moved, right? My vertical asymptote would be at x equals 1. And I flipped it upside down, so it looks something like this. Even if it's a shift up or down, it doesn't really matter. You're shifting it up or down. If it's a vertical stretch or shrink, it doesn't really matter. What the important things are is where does it face and what's my horizontal changes, right? So if it asked me about my domain, what would it be? 1 to positive infinity with a parentheses on the 1. What would be the range? Negative infinity to positive infinity. We said vertical asymptote would be at x equals 1. And then if it asks for the end behavior, remember this time, one of the ends is your vertical asymptote. So the left side of this graph is actually approaching the vertical asymptote, which is at 1, and it's coming from the right. So it would look like that. And the right side of this graph, x is going to infinity. So one side's going to be unbounded infinity or negative infinity, and the other side's going to have your vertical asymptote. So then this one, as it's approaching positive 1 from the right, what's happening to my y values? Going to infinity. My arrow's pointing up, right? And as it's going, as my x values are going to positive infinity, what's happening to the y values? Going to negative infinity, okay? So be really careful. One little sign off there, and you get all those points wrong. 5 points gone. So make sure you pay attention to those signs really carefully. Yep. So think about what it's like. What does end behavior mean? End means what's happening at the end of the graph on the right and what's happening at the end of the graph on the left. One of these arrows is going to point on to positive infinity, because if my log has either of these shapes, that's going to positive infinity, that's going to positive infinity. So one of those x values are going to positive infinity. If I flip it over the y, now it's going to negative infinity, right? One of the x values is going to negative infinity on that side. Or not one of the x values. The x values as it goes to negative infinity. But on the other side, it's always going to be approaching wherever the vertical asymptote is, because that vertical asymptote is what stops it from moving further left. So if I look, for example, at my initial parent function, which is this one, my values are never going to get past where the vertical asymptote is, where in this case it's at 0. So if I wanted to describe the end behavior of my parent function, it would be what's the limit as x approaches 0 from the right, because it's coming from the right and approaching my vertical asymptote, right? So then what's happening to the y values is what I want to put next to it. And it's because it's going to negative infinity, my y values are going to negative infinity. Does that make sense? So you got to know, one, what's the graph going to look like? Where's your vertical asymptote? Once you have those two things, you should be able to figure them out. About this guy, like on this?
No, on the one on top.
The limit as x is approaching 0 from positive infinity. This is what you mean?
The one that we just did with like the reflection of the x-axis and
Okay, the middle one.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
So it's coming to, you mean this side as it's approaching 1 from the right. So it's coming here as it's approaching from the right. My x value or my y values are getting bigger, so it's going to positive infinity. If it's going to positive infinity, now I'm going this direction. And as it's going that direction, the y values are going to get lower and lower and lower, so it's going to go to negative infinity. So let's say I solve a log equation and I get x equals 0. I have to check to make sure that when I plug it back in, I'm finding log of something bigger than 0. If it was 0 there, I couldn't do it. If it's a negative there, I can't keep those answers. That's just solving logs. But then for your inequalities, you have to test for your lower bounds. You're going to solve an inequality. It's going to say something like x has to be less than a number. So let's just say I said x has to be less than 10. And you might think you're done and you might have a multiple choice that says negative infinity to 10. And you might get super excited and you might circle it and you might lose all of the points. So don't do it. You have to test anything that has a log with an x in it has to be tested in one way or the other. Either I'm taking my answer and I'm plugging back in, or if it is an inequality, I have to set whatever's equal to all the logs greater than 0. So in this case, I would say x plus 3 has to be greater than 0 and x minus 4 has to be greater than 0. I would solve them both. And I get x has to be greater than negative 3 and x has to be greater than 4. And I have to pick the most restricted one because it has to overlap. So if I had put greater than negative 3, it would have been that way. And if I would have put greater than 4, it would have been that way. And only where they overlap can I keep it. So then this part of it said less than 10, which means it would be from 0 to 10, or from 4 to 10. And that question, the answer is in interval notation. Yeah.
So going back to the other one, like the first example.
Let's say, I don't know that those look like that, but let's say it looks like this. I want to know where the y1, let's say this was my y1. I want to know where y1 is less than y2, which would be from this point on. So you would look for that intersection. If I wanted to know the other way around, then it would be from whatever this vertical asymptote is. So there's going to be a restriction up to this point, and that comes from setting what's inside the parentheses greater than 0. That gives you your first restriction. These are also the ones that when you're on the calculator and you go to do the intersection, remember that first one, it's not always on the curve first. You have to arrow over so that it's on the curve. To me, if you practice these are easy, but if you don't practice them, they are going to feel weird. So be really, really careful. All right, then we got into the expansion and condensing on here. So if you expand this, make sure you also simplify. 13 and 16 is condensing. So here we're expanding. and here we're condensing. And then here we're describing the transformations. It will be multiple choice. So like when we did these on the quiz, you could have had two answers, right? This could be, like specifically this one could have been a horizontal dilation by a factor of 1/16. Or when we split it up, it's a vertical shift up 2. On a multiple choice, you're only going to get the vertical shift one. So you will only get the one that has after it's expanded. So for these, make sure you expand and then look at the transformation. These are your calculator active ones. So just basically, I mean, the left side would be your Y1, the right side would be your Y2, and see where they cross. 26 and 27, you're graphing, that would also be calculator. The most important thing on this is that you check these answers. So when you're solving all the logs, anything that starts with a log, that has a log, that has a log in it, that has a log in it, you have to check. Not the exponential stuff, but the log ones, you'd all have to check your answers to make sure that there's nothing there you can't keep. Whether it's, if it's calculator active and you're solving it, you'll just solve it. But if it's calculator active and you're looking at a graph of it, it would eliminate any answer that wasn't there. So like if I just put this in the calculator and the left side was my Y1 and the right side is my Y2, I don't have to check those answers because it's not like they're not going to be. Does that make sense? They're not, it's not like you're going to, because the graph will eliminate them. Based. And then 28 and 29 are your word problem, your real world simulation questions, where you're either given the function, like in this case, you're actually given the P, it tells you to use P times e to the RT. And then 29, you have to find the log regression and then answer based on it. And then we go to semi-log plots. So tell which one represents the exponential. Remember, you're looking for a semi-log plot with a linear shape. And then 32 is like the one we did on Monday where you have to find the log and then create the linear function. And then it ends with the last part. Again, on the test, the table won't be worth anything. So if you know how to do this in your list 1, list 2, list 3, you can just run the regression. Questions on any of these? Okay.